Good morning, it's Amanda Taylor at Oatka and Areo. This is getting towards the end of the Toe River Arts Virtual Studio Tour. I think this is the second last video that we're going to be doing. Today we pulled out the mosaic pieces that we had worked on previously. So we are going to be adding more material to this. So you saw us starting the assembling of the flowers in the background, and then we put it in the kiln and we actually tack fused it to the glass, just so that the glass pieces were on there, and then we actually took black powder and brushed it into all the lines, the cracks in between the colored piece of glass. So that's what we did, and then we fired again. And that I tack fused the design onto the base glass first before I actually add the grout, if you want to call it grout, um, of the black powder, just so that the pieces don't move around. The black powder doesn't get underneath the pieces um, at all. You can see there's hardly any. Well, there is no black dots on any of the glass, which means that the powder stayed in the cracks, the grout stayed in the cracks, and that's only because we did it with two firings. And today we're actually going to be doing some of the shading. So I'll bring this over. So this is a piece I made in Miriam Fiore's class. So we're going to actually start adding some red, because we have some orange glass in here. So we're going to add red powder to shade the poppies, not make them completely orange. They're going to actually have a red tint to them. And also we're going to start adding some, we have little tiny, very tiny little strings of glass that I pulled on the torch this morning to add to the background colors, like the brown and the purples. And if you look closer, I don't know if you can see that, you can see some modeling, and that is the clear glass melting into the colored glass behind it, and it gives it a different shade. And then we're going to be sifting some powders over that as well to add a little more visual texture to it. So that is what we're going to be doing today, and for this piece. And then it goes back in the kiln for the last firing. It's going to be totally fused flat, like the piece, the Miriam Fiore piece that I did. And yeah, and that'll be the end of the mosaic piece. So you'll see the finished piece either at the very end of this video, or at the last video. So but we'll start working on the pieces. So just a second. There we go. So we're going to actually add some of these little pieces. I made two different kinds of strings, and I'm going to try to find a darker background just so that we may be able to see what we're looking at. And I don't know if I can find one. So we might just be pulling it out of our hat here. Here, I'll try to use this. Maybe they'll show up on that. Okay, so I'm just going to pull a couple out here. So these are the straight ones. There's no thickness change in them. So I'm going to take that little piece of glass, which is very thin, and place it onto my poppy, on one of the poppy flowers. And here again, this is going to be a really frustrating process, and you can start, Araya. You don't have to wait for me. You can see what I'm doing. You can do it in orange and red. So we're going to be doing a little bit of both. Yes, and like I said, they're very frustrating because they're so small. And these tweezers are terrible. They don't pick up anything. There we go. So make sure you get a good pair of tweezers for this. And you can also drop a little dot of glue on here once you get them on, because they will move around and they're going to drive you nuts. So I am just going to do a little dot of glue. I'm going to do a little. So just do one petal at a time. Don't try to go all over the place, okay? Otherwise you'll get frustrated. Okay, so then I'm just going to place them here and there. That's Willow licking herself. Isn't that nice? And try not to touch your tweezers to the glue once you put it on there. Yeah, so we're just going to drop these on. It's hard to see, isn't it? And a little dot of glue. And we just want to do this to get a little variation in the petal. Oh, it's a little bit of clear on top of the color. Like I said, it kind of gives you a slightly washed out version of the red. So, it's not really dramatic, but it's a subtle thing. Here we go, picking them off, dropping them on. Another exciting process to watch. Here we go. On you go. And once we get those all done, and I'm just gonna do one petal and then one little area here, and then we're gonna move on to the shading, adding the clear to the browns and the purples, because it'll probably take us, I'd say, probably a couple hours to do this for the whole piece. So I'm sure you don't want to watch all that, but this will give you an idea of where we're going with this. More little dots of glue. Like I said, this is going to be pretty subtle because these are really fine stringers. Right, Araya? They're very fine. Okay. You can barely see them on there. Alright. Might just do this one too since we're over here. Maybe. And I'm gonna break this in two. And you can do that, you can break these into two, and then, especially for the smaller flowers. So break them in two. Not too much. Otherwise you'll get a big blob like you did on the other one. Yeah, so be careful how much you add. Okay, break that in two. So you can move it to the edge and then try to pick it up that way, right? And I just pulled enough here to get us going, get us started. Ah, yes, and they roll around. They tend to have a mind of their own, so I think I've done that one. Uh-oh. Yes, it is. Okay. So there's the little one. Oh, see, they move around. Don't try to touch or glue to that. There we go. Stay. Mm-hmm. They're hard to see. That's how it goes. Whose phone is that? Is that yours, Aria? You want to turn it off? Okay, here we go. And keep the straight ones off to the one side. Now these have a different shape. They're kind of they have a thin and then thick and then thin. Where do we go? It flew off. There it is. So I'm going to start putting these onto my other pieces. I'm just going to randomly throw them in there. I don't want any, just, nope, that's not the, I said this, the straight ones are for the flowers, they're over on this side. I started putting these ones over here. Okay, so you just, those are for the flowers. Yeah. Different shape. They don't look like it to the blind eye, but they are. So yeah, I'm just, randomly sticking them on there if they'll stay. So we're just going to do a little shadowing with the frit, and we're actually going to be using, what color frit are we using for these, Aria? For the shading. What? Speak up. Speak up. Tan and red. So we're using tan and red. Two bullseye colors. So, okay. If you need more straight ones, they're in there. There we go. Should put that there. So I have enough of these. I'm actually going to put more, a couple more over here. I'm going to use up what I have on here. And obviously I'm going to be pulling more of these as we go along here because you need quite a few. And I will show that in a second here. Okay. Okay. Don't blow on it, might blow them off. Okay, so just a little dab. So you didn't do all of these?
No,
So they all have a bunch on? Because that's how it's supposed to. You need quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few. Okay, so I am going to start with shading the flower with red. So that's these, so you can add more to those. Flower with red. I'm going to use my little tiny sifter. And I'm just going to do a light shading on these. And I'm actually going to get some. Well, there's a piece right there. I think. Move this out of the way for the moment. And I'm going to get my little styrofoam thing. What? Yep. So much work. Okay, so I'm just going to do the flowers. So I'm just sifting a little bit of the red on here, and it doesn't have to be a lot. And I'm not trying to get onto the other glass. So So we're just basically trying to get the orange to be a little darker in tint, but also to do a little shading on the red. So that's it. And a little bit over here too. There's a little piece of orange there. So that's the red. And now I'm going to do a little bit of the shading with the tan. So this is Bullseye's tan color. Nope, they have to go on in straight lines. Otherwise, you don't just throw. It's only in this area where you throw them around, where they're random, right? But on the flowers, they have to, because you're trying to create this kind of a look. Okay. Okay, so tan. Here we go. And so I'm just doing a little bit of shading. I might do a little darker in some areas, lighter in others. But you can see how the clear is on top of that, and it'll actually protect the color that's below it from the powder that I'm putting on top. And that's about it. So that is the idea. We'll be going around the whole piece, and then we'll be putting it back in the kiln. So a little bit more work. It's a little bit more work. What? Yeah, you get to pull some now. Don't play with it. Anyway, so that is it for this part. So like I said, we'll just continue working on these pieces. You saw the gist of it, and then we'll be putting it back in the kiln and firing it, and then you'll see it later on in this video. But if you like my YouTube channel, subscribe. Anyway, we'll be back. Thanks a lot. Bye.